again, which is all about mindfulness blocks. Okay, so mindfulness blocks. So if we think back to what the definition of mindfulness was, just in case we've forgotten. So mindfulness being the practice of focusing awareness on the present moment. What would you think a mindfulness block would be, if you had to hazard a guess?
Wandering minds.
Quite possibly, yeah, maybe. But what would be another way of looking at that?
You mean what are blocks? Like,
Yeah,
like fear, worry,
absolutely.
planning for the future.
Absolutely. So you've already jumped like way ahead to like 3 slides from now. But that's great actually, because we'll get there in just a second. But yeah, so how we define a mindfulness block in relation to mindfulness is it's a persistent thought or feeling that reduces awareness of the present moment. So persistent thought or feeling that reduces awareness of the present moment.
Right.
So we're going to start to explore this because Corinne was straight on, okay, when she was saying worry, because guess what they all are? So you can see here a number of different common mindfulness blocks. Worry, anxiety, judgment, anger. I mean, there's plenty here. I'm not going to literally read every single thing that's on here. But there's a number of them that tend to come up. And this isn't an all-exhaustive list. There's plenty of other things that you could add on to it. That's why it says, add or unblock, so to speak, as well. But when you look at this list here that's in front of you, what do you notice about it?
But I have felt every single one of those.
Mm-hmm. And so they're feelings.
Yes.
They're feelings. Yeah.
They're all internal.
Yes. I was wondering if someone was going to say that. And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because these are all internal blocks. These are things that we create for ourselves. So sometimes, because initially when I was putting this list together, I was thinking distractions, time, resources, and those tend to be external blocks. And we're going to talk about those a little bit later on in the day, and there's an activity we're going to do around that. But right now we're going inward. So we're going in to kind of go out, because what I've found as a coach, and Donald and Jennifer, I'm sure you've probably found this too, the more you coach folks, and Corinne as well, because you're a coach, that we do a great job of derailing ourselves, more so than probably anybody else could do sometimes. We create those blocks for ourselves. So I want to spend some time diving inwards to understand that a little bit. So one thing I want to get clear on before we go forward, and I might be opening Pandora's box, and I'm going to ask a provocative question. So if these are all emotions, and we're also saying that they're mindfulness blocks, are we saying that you don't want to feel your emotions?
No.
Right. Okay, so what are we saying? What do you think we are saying here?
That we're attached to our emotions.
That we identify with them.
Yeah, I recognize them, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So how would you distinguish between an emotion that needs to be felt, that's healthy and needs to be felt, and a mindfulness block? How would you distinguish between
awareness versus lack of awareness around that emotion?
Okay.
And whether you're intentionally processing through it with the intention to learn and grow from it, whatever it is there to teach you, versus unconsciously just being angry.
And maybe getting hooked.
Yeah.
Potentially. Yeah. Because I see a lot of you kind of thinking about that one. How would you tell the difference between a mindfulness block and a healthy emotion that you want to feel?
I go back to that word persistent that you said. Like sometimes we all have this kind of narrative that we've made up around things that we're, insecure about or whatever.
Yeah.
So sometimes when it's a mindfulness block, it's like, I don't know, and I didn't even know to call it a mindfulness block. It was more therapy.
Just a word I know.
Yeah. But it was more thing, something that was like, is this something that is, again, just in my head, that keeps recurring again and again, that's holding me back from.
Right. So go on, Corinne. You were just about to say something.
I'm just, I don't know if any of you have read Jill Bolt Taylor's book or seen her TED Talk.
Yes.
No, I haven't heard of her.
I think she wrote a book, I think it's called My Stroke of Genius. She had a stroke. She's a neuroscientist who had a stroke, and she was able actually to kind of like document and observe what happened to her as she had the stroke. And part of what she discovered in her research is, and that this just when you asked the question, I was really thinking about that, that she found emotions really are very short-lived. Emotions last for no more than a minute and a half.
Yes.
It's the story we have about the emotion that keeps it alive. So when you ask that distinction, it's like, well, are we
Bingo.
kind of paying attention to the emotion and allowing it to go? Or are we continuing to tell the story over and over?
And that just goes back to what
To the persistent
what
thought.
Jennifer was saying, like, is it persisting? And so, because I was asking myself this question the other day, because I wanted to be really careful how I framed and set up this section, because I don't want people walking away from this discussion thinking that emotions are bad, and that I'm not supposed to feel emotions anymore because they're mindfulness blocks. So I went back to the definition, and a persistent thought or feeling that reduces awareness of the present moment. So there's plenty of emotions that arise spontaneously, like as a product of the present moment. And these are quick-lived things, going back to what Karina was saying. So for instance, let's say I'm looking at my newborn child, which I don't have a kid, but let's say I was looking at my newborn child right after it was born. And I was caught up in the joy of the moment and just feeling that feeling of joy. You know, that's obviously an emotion that we're in the present moment, I'm feeling it, it's spontaneous. That's an emotion that I want to feel. On the flip side of that as well, let's say I've got a dog, and unfortunately my dog dies. You know, the family dog passes away. Grief, it arises from the moment. You know, definitely something that you want to feel. You know, we all probably heard stories about pushing grief down and what that does for us. You know, so definitely something you want to process and feel. Even sadness, for instance. And so the example I use of this is, watching a sad movie. You know, why do we watch a sad movie?
To feel.
To feel. We watch a sad movie to feel. Emotions are the elixir of life, right? So we watch a sad movie to feel. I have watched Out of Africa, it's my favorite movie, by the way, like a million times. And every time Robert Redford dies at the end, I'm sorry I ruined it for you, but every time he dies, I'm like completely absorbed with emotion. And then she gets syphilis, the lead character, and then she loses her farm. And you're feeling all that emotion for her, and you're there in the moment, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a way of connecting to people, feeling that connection, it's humanity. So these are all very powerful emotions, and we want to feel them. Contrast that with a different emotion I've been feeling over the last couple of years. And I'll give you an example in my own personal life. So confidentiality. But my cousin Heather, who I've known since birth, and we've been really close ever since birth. As you grow older, you get a little different. You know, I kind of went left, she went right. You know, things kind of changed. And there was a situation a few years ago where we were having a conversation. It was a few months before my wedding. And she was asking me some questions about it. And we didn't get married in a church. We didn't have a priest. You know, I was raised Catholic. We didn't have any of this stuff. And I felt that she judged me. You know, so whether she did or not, that's not the point. The point is that I felt that she judged me. And I felt a huge amount of shame in that conversation. Just shame. You know, big time. Which then turned into anger. Which then turned into resistance and all sorts of things. And I kept replaying that, going back to your point, in my mind, over and over and over and over again. And it kept hooking me and hooking me and hooking me and hooking me. And this is something that I've worked my way through. But that's an emotion that wasn't really serving me. Because I was creating it over and over and over and over again and allowing myself to get hooked. So I'll give you another example of one that is more related to work. So in the run-up to actually doing this program, I was, you know, obviously like a little bit nervous about getting it finished, and the procrastinator that I am, I left some of it probably to the last minute, and then I was sitting down trying to work on it, and the whole time there was a tape playing in my head, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, WTF. What are you going to do? You're never going to get this done. You're never going to get this done. Everyone's going to hate it. You know, the tapes that we play in our minds, the stories that we create, going back to the points you were making, anxiety. So much so at one point that I couldn't even concentrate on what I was doing. It's a mindfulness block. I couldn't concentrate on the exact course I'm trying to do because I was too worried about the future outcome of it. So often when you get caught in the block, you're focused on the past, on something that happened in the past, or you're focused on the future and you're worried about something that's going to happen, you know, like that rabbit chasing the thing around the track, you never quite get there. So does that help in terms of distinguishing this? Because I wanted to be real careful how I set this up to make sure that nobody goes away thinking, and we're not supposed to feel anymore. Now that I've been to a course on mindfulness. So I just wanted to clarify that.